Hey guys, so I finished the assembly of my King of Ruin, and I thought I'd show you guys what I did and how it compares to some models you might be more familiar with. First of all, as I said in the previous video, I filled the gap around its torso. This looks a bit messy, but if you've ever used Milliput, you know you can smooth it out with water so that it actually doesn't show up anymore at all once it's painted. You can also see here that I made some small fixes around the face. Oh yeah, and I decided to go with the messed up one-eyed version after all. Here's a view of the back, same deal, I just filled that big gap around the torso. Again, looks a bit messy, but this should all disappear once it's primed. I also pinned his left arm, by the way, just because it seemed so easy that it would have been silly not to do it. I don't really think it's necessary though, the arm almost stays up without even poster tack. I'm more worried about the arm holding the sword because it's attached vertically, but a pin wouldn't really solve that either. Actually, that reminds me of an issue I ran into during assembly. As I suspected, some of the surfaces that you're meant to glue together don't actually make contact. The entire torso is held together by a mix of Tamiya putty to fill up the hollow space and superglue in a couple of spots on the outside where the pieces actually do touch. Not a huge issue, but something you should probably be aware of if you're going to build this thing. Anyway, here's a comparison with an Imperial Knight. Not that it really matters, this is just the biggest Games Workshop model I have, and I thought you guys would want to see how it stacks up. As you can see, the Knight is quite a bit taller. And here he is next to a Bloodthirster, the Citadel plastic version. The Thirster looks taller, but that's really just because it's elevated about 3 or 4 centimeters by the flame base I've got it riding on. It actually looks pretty spindly and puny in comparison. And here's the comparison you really needed to see, the Forge World Great Unclean one. Now, it looks like they're about the same size, but note where the Great Unclean one's foot is. It's sitting on a pretty big slab of cork, actually, that makes it look taller than it really is. It's also pretty obvious even without paint which of the two is more detailed. Now, don't get me wrong here, the Forge World Great Unclean one is one of my favorite models in the world, but the reality is that the King of Ruin is bigger, more detailed, has many more parts, and, parts that actually fit together, and it costs a bit more than half as much as the Forge World model. Which you like better is your personal preference. If you ask me, I love them both. But the King of Ruin is just objectively better value for money. Unfortunately, the base sizes don't match, so if you wanted to proxy the King of Ruin in Warhammer games, you'd have to fix that. But I'd just slap it on top of his Citadel base and fill up the empty space around it with some rubble or something. If ever into that sort of thing. Oh, also, you gotta have a comparison to a Space Marine, and unfortunately, all I have is a bunch of second edition dudes that I painted in corn collars because, well, it's a long story. Anyway, here's a Space Marine comparison. So that's my review of the King of Ruin. I have to say, I'm really impressed with Creature Caster. I wish they'd step up their packaging game to make sure things don't get broken in transit, but the models are fantastic. Gorgeous detail and sharp, great quality resin, good parts fit, and personally, I just like their crazy design style, at least for the male models. Most of their female models are a bit too cheesecakey for me, although I do like the Queen of Ecstasy, so I might end up getting that one eventually. But what you're getting here for the price from a small company that grew out of a Kickstarter is really just goddamn amazing. So what's going to happen next is that I'm going to prime and paint this guy, and then I also bought the King of War, which I'm probably going to put together over the holidays, so you can expect to see that soon. Until then, like, comment, subscribe, check out my Patreon link in the description, and remember, Papa Nurgle loves you.